Maya Collins walked down the long metal hallway of Harmony's Edge station. Her shoes made soft sounds on the floor. She carried a small bag with her papers and computer. Today was the day that could change everything. The station floated in space between 3 different worlds. It was built for meetings like this one. When different alien races could not agree, they came here to talk. The walls were white and clean. Blue lights ran along the ceiling. Maya had been here before, but today felt different. She stopped at a large window and looked out at the stars. 3 different types of ships waited outside. The human ships looked like white arrows. The elf ships had beautiful curves and gold paint. The crystal ships from the hegemony looked like floating diamonds. They sparkled in the starlight. Maya took a deep breath. She was here to solve a big problem. For 3 years, humans, elves, and the crystal people had been fighting about trade rules. Nobody could agree on anything. The crystal people said human feelings had no place in law. The elves said their old ways were the only right ways. Humans said both groups were being too stubborn. The fight was getting worse. Some people talked about war. Maya did not want that to happen. War would hurt everyone. She walked into the meeting room. It was round with a high ceiling. 3 groups of chairs faced each other. The human section had blue chairs. The elf section had green chairs. The crystal people had clear chairs that looked like ice. Maya sat down in the front row of the human section. She put her bag on the floor and looked around. The room felt cold and unfriendly. No one was talking to anyone from the other groups. Soon, the elf group walked in. They were tall and thin with pointed ears. Their skin looked perfect and smooth. They wore long robes in different shades of green and silver. The lead elf was a woman named Lirelei Moonwhisper. She had silver hair that reached her waist. Her eyes were bright green like emeralds. Lirelei looked at Maya for a moment. Her face showed no feelings. She sat down without saying hello. The other elves did the same. They whispered to each other in their musical language. Then the crystal people arrived. Maya had seen them before, but they still amazed her. They looked like walking diamonds. Light moved through their bodies in different colors. Their leader was named Zarathek. She was taller than the others. Blue and purple lights danced under her clear skin. The crystal people made small singing sounds when they talked to each other. It sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. They sat down in their clear chairs and became very still. A loud voice filled the room. The Galactic Arbitration Council will now begin. We are here to solve the trade dispute between the Human Federation, the Silverleaf Dominion, and the hegemony of rational order. The speaker was a floating robot with many arms. It had no feelings and belonged to no race. This made it a good judge for fights between different species. The Human Federation will speak first, the robot said. Maya stood up. She walked to the center of the room. All eyes were on her. The elves looked bored. The crystal people's lights grew dimmer, like they were thinking hard. Thank you, Maya said. Her voice was clear and strong. We are here because we cannot agree on simple things. We cannot agree on how to make fair trade rules. We cannot agree on what makes a good law. She turned to face the crystal people. The hegemony says human feelings are not logical. They say we make bad choices because we use our hearts instead of our heads. Zarathek's lights flickered. This meant she was listening carefully. Maya turned to the elves. The Silverleaf Dominion says their old ways are always right. They say humans are too young to understand real wisdom. Lirelei's face did not change, but her fingers moved slightly. This was a sign that she was not completely calm. But I think both groups are wrong about something important, Maya continued. You are both wrong about humans, and humans might be wrong about you too. She walked closer to Zarathek. The crystal woman's lights grew brighter. Most humans were afraid of the crystal people. They looked so different and strange. Their voices sounded like machines. But Maya was not afraid. She looked right at Zarathek's glowing face. Then she did something that had never happened in this room before. She smiled. It was not a fake smile or a polite smile. It was real and warm. Maya smiled at Zarathek like she was greeting an old friend. The crystal woman's lights went crazy. Colors flashed through her body, red, yellow, blue, green. She made a sound like breaking glass. All the other crystal people turned to look at their leader. The elves sat up straighter. Lirelei's eyes went wide. She had never seen a crystal person react like this. The floating robot judge made worried beeping sounds. Is there a tea? Zarathek raised one crystal hand. No problem detected, she said, but her voice sounded different. It was still like a machine but warmer somehow. Maya kept smiling. I smiled at you because I see you, she said to Zarathek. Not a walking computer, not a cold machine. I see a person who thinks and feels and tries to do what is right. More colors flashed through Zarathek's body. She tilted her head like she was trying to understand something new. In human law, Maya continued, we believe feelings matter, not because we are weak or silly, but because feelings give us information. When someone is angry, we ask why. When someone is sad, we try to help. When someone is happy, we learn what works. She turned to include the elves. The Silverleaf Dominion has thousands of years of wisdom. They have learned many things that humans are just starting to understand. Their old laws have kept peace for longer than humans have been traveling in space. Liralay's expression softened slightly. She had not expected the human to show respect for elf culture. But, Maya said, looking at all three groups, what if we are all right about different things? What if the best answer is not to pick one way, but to combine all our ways? The room was very quiet. The crystal people's lights pulsed slowly. The elves whispered among themselves. The humans looked nervous. I propose something new, Maya said. I propose we create a legal system that uses human feelings, elf wisdom, and crystal logic, all together, all at once. Zarathek stood up. Her lights were steady now, mostly blue and white. This proposal creates logical paradoxes, she said. How can emotion be logical? How can wisdom ignore facts? Asked Liralay, also standing. Maya looked at both women. They were so different from each other and from her, but they were both asking good questions. Maybe, Maya said, we need to change what we think logic means. Maybe we need to learn new kinds of wisdom. She smiled again, this time at both women. Maybe we need to stop being afraid of each other. The room fell silent again. Outside the window, the three fleets waited. Inside the room, three women from three different worlds looked at each other and wondered if peace was possible after all. The robot judge's lights blinked rapidly. In 847 years of galactic law, no one had ever suggested what the human just suggested. The computer systems were working hard to process this new idea. Liralay Moonwhisper could not sleep. She lay in her room on the station and stared at the ceiling. Her mind kept going back to the meeting room and the human woman's smile. For 300 years, Liralay had studied law. She knew every old rule and tradition of her people. Elves had always believed that wisdom came from age and experience. They looked down on younger races like humans. Humans lived such short lives. How could they understand anything important? But the human Maya had done something strange. She had treated the crystal woman like a real person. Most people were afraid of the crystal beings. Even elves kept their distance. The crystal people seemed so cold and machine-like. Liralay got up and walked to her window. She could see the crystal ship floating in space. Lights moved through its diamond walls. She wondered what the crystal people were thinking right now. In the crystal ship, Zarathek was having problems. She sat in her meditation chamber surrounded by glowing computers. Numbers and symbols flew through the air around her. She was trying to understand what had happened in the meeting room. For the past 6 hours, Zarathek had run the human's smile through every analysis program she knew. The results made no sense. A smile was just facial muscles moving. It had no logical purpose in a legal discussion. But something about Maya's smile had affected Zarathek's thinking processes. The crystal woman touched a panel on the wall. More information appeared in the air. She studied reports about human behavior. Humans smiled when they were happy. They smiled when they were trying to be polite. They smiled when they wanted something. But Maya's smile had been different. It was not asking for anything. It was not trying to manipulate or control. The human had simply looked at Zarathek and smiled like she was glad to see her. No one had ever been glad to see Zarathek before. People were usually afraid or suspicious. They saw her crystal body and thought she was just a walking computer. They never thought she might have feelings or hopes or fears. Zarathek's lights flickered as she realized something important. Maya had seen her as an individual, not as a representative of her species, not as a machine, as herself. This was a new type of data. Zarathek's people had spent thousands of years studying logic and mathematics. They had learned to remove emotions from their thinking. Emotions were messy and unpredictable. But Maya's emotion had not been stupid. It had been kind. Zarathek tried to run kindness through her logical systems. The computers could not process it properly. Kindness did not fit into any mathematical equation. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe some things could not be understood with logic alone. The next morning, all three groups met again. The robot judge floated in the center of the room. The Silverleaf Dominion will now present their position, it announced. Liralay stood up. She had planned to give the same speech she always gave. Elves were wise. Elves were experienced. Humans and crystal people should listen to elf law because it had worked for thousands of years. But when she looked at Maya and Zarathek, the words changed in her mouth. The Silverleaf Dominion has ruled by tradition for many generations, she began. Our laws have kept peace in our territory for longer than most species have existed. She paused and looked directly at Maya. But yesterday, the human representative said something that troubles me. She suggested that perhaps all of our ways have value. The other elves behind her made soft sounds of surprise. This was not what they had expected their leader to say. I have been thinking about this, Lirelei continued. For 300 years I have studied law. I know every rule and every precedent, but I have never had to work with other species before. I have never had to consider that their ways might also be correct. She turned to face Zarathek. The crystal woman's lights were pulsing in a steady blue pattern. The hegemony uses logic and mathematics to make decisions, Lirelei said. This seems cold to us. We value feelings and intuition, but perhaps their logic could help us avoid mistakes that come from acting on emotion alone. Zarathek's lights grew brighter. No one had ever suggested that crystal methods might be helpful before. Lirelei looked back at Maya. And humans adapt quickly. They learn from their mistakes. They are willing to try new things. These are not weaknesses. These might be strengths. Maya smiled again. It was the same warm, genuine smile from the day before. But this time, Lirelei felt herself almost smiling back. She caught herself and maintained her serious expression, but something had changed inside her. The Silverleaf Dominion is willing to discuss the human proposal, Lirelei announced. We will consider creating a new legal system that combines our different approaches. Her fellow elves looked shocked. Some whispered angrily among themselves. Change was difficult for elf society. They preferred to keep things the same for hundreds of years. The robot judge turned to Zarathek. The hegemony of rational order will now present their position. Zarathek stood up slowly. Her lights shifted from blue to white to pale yellow. She had spent all night thinking about Maya's smile and what it meant. The hegemony has always believed that logic is superior to emotion, she began. Her voice was clear and mechanical as always. Emotions cause beings to make poor decisions. They lead to conflict and suffering. She paused and looked at Maya. But yesterday the human representative demonstrated something unexpected. She showed kindness toward a being she had never met before. This kindness served no logical purpose, yet it achieved a positive result. The other crystal people behind Zarathek made soft chiming sounds. They were confused by their leader's words. I have spent the night analyzing this kindness, Zarathek continued. I cannot fit it into any mathematical formula. I cannot predict its outcomes using standard logical processes. Yet it appears to be a form of intelligence that the hegemony has not considered. She turned to face Lirelei. The Silverleaf Dominion has preserved wisdom for thousands of years. Their experience contains data that could be valuable for decision-making. Their traditions have prevented many conflicts that logic alone might not have avoided. Lirelei blinked in surprise. She had not expected the crystal woman to show respect for elf ways. The hegemony is willing to participate in the human proposal, Zarathek announced. We will attempt to integrate emotional and traditional data into our logical frameworks. Now it was the crystal people's turn to be shocked. Some of them made sharp, angry sounds like breaking glass. Their entire society was built on pure logic. The idea of including emotions was almost frightening to them. Maya stood up again. She looked at both women with genuine gratitude. Thank you, she said simply. Thank you for being willing to try something new. She walked to the center of the room again. I know this will not be easy. We have different languages, different ways of thinking, different values, but I believe we can learn from each other. Maya looked at Zarathek. Your people are amazing at solving complex problems. You can process information faster than anyone. We need that skill. She turned to Lirelei. Your people have wisdom that comes from thousands of years of experience. You understand consequences that the rest of us cannot see. We need that knowledge. Finally, she gestured to her own section. And humans, we adapt. We try new things. Sometimes we fail, but we learn from our failures. Maybe that is what we need right now, the willingness to fail while we learn. The robot judge's lights blinked rapidly. This tribunal has never encountered such a proposal, it said. There are no precedents for combining 3 different legal systems. Then we will create new precedents, Maya said. She looked at Lirelei and Zarathek. together. For the first time since the meetings began, something new entered the room. It was not quite friendship yet, but it was the beginning of understanding. 3 women from 3 different worlds were starting to see each other not as enemies, but as potential partners. Outside the station, the 3 fleets continued to wait. But inside the meeting room, the first steps toward peace had begun. And it had all started with a simple smile that said, "I see you as a person worth knowing." The real work was just beginning. Maya sat down, but she kept smiling. She had planted a seed. Now she had to wait and see if it would grow. Dr. Amy Foster sat in her laboratory on the human research ship New Horizon. She was monitoring communication signals from across the galaxy. What she was seeing made her very excited and very worried at the same time. For the past week, reports had been coming in from human colonies, elf worlds, and crystal territories. Something strange was happening. People from all 3 species were working together on small projects. This had never happened before in galactic history. Amy pulled up a report from the mining station at Beta 7. Human workers and crystal engineers were sharing technical data. They were solving problems together that neither group could handle alone. On the elf world of Starwind, human scientists were learning ancient elf mathematics while teaching modern physics to elf scholars. The most amazing report came from a trading post called Haven's Rest. Humans, elves, and crystal people were eating meals together. They were learning each other's languages. Children from all 3 species were playing the same games. Amy smiled as she read the reports. She knew this was all because of Maya's work at Harmony's Edge Station. News of the peace talks had spread through the galaxy's communication networks. People were hearing that their leaders were trying to work together. This gave ordinary citizens permission to do the same thing. But Amy also saw darker reports. On several worlds, angry groups were protesting. They did not want their species mixing with aliens. Some humans called Maya a traitor. Some elves said Lirelei was forgetting her duty to elf tradition. Some crystal people accused Zarathek of being infected by emotional madness. Amy sent a message to Maya. "The galaxy is watching what you are doing. Some people love it. Some people hate it. Be careful." Back on Harmony's Edge Station, Maya was having her own problems. She sat in a small meeting room with Lirelei and Zarathek. They were trying to work out the details of their new legal system. It was much harder than they had expected. "Human law changes too quickly," Lirelei said. She looked frustrated. "You make new rules every few years. How can anyone know what is legal and what is not?" "Elf law never changes at all," Maya replied. "Some of your rules are thousands of years old. They might have worked in the past, but they do not fit modern problems." Zarathek's lights flashed yellow and red. "Both systems lack proper logical structure," she said. "Human laws contradict each other. Elf laws have gaps where no rules exist. How can either system produce reliable results?" Maya rubbed her forehead. They had been having this same argument for 3 days. Every time they tried to combine their legal systems, they found new problems. "Maybe we are thinking about this wrong," Maya said. "Instead of trying to mix our old systems, maybe we need to build something completely new." "Impossible," Lirelei said immediately. "Legal systems take centuries to develop. You cannot just invent new laws overnight." "Incorrect," Zarathek added. "Legal frameworks require extensive testing and mathematical proof. Random creation would produce chaos." Maya looked at both women. They were all tired and frustrated. The weight of their responsibility was enormous. If they failed, 3 species might go to war. If they succeeded, they would change the galaxy forever. "Let me tell you a story," Maya said quietly. "On Earth, humans used to have many different legal systems. Some were based on religion, some were based on tradition, some were based on the power of kings and queens. They all contradicted each other." Lirelei and Zarathek listened carefully. "For thousands of years, humans fought wars over which legal system was correct," Maya continued. "Many people died. Much knowledge was lost. Then something changed." "What changed?" Lirelei asked. "Humans realized that no single system was perfect," Maya said. "So they started borrowing ideas from each other. The best human legal systems today combine religious wisdom, traditional knowledge, logical analysis, and democratic choice. They work because they use the best parts of many different approaches." Zarathek's lights shifted to a thoughtful blue. "This suggests that hybrid systems can be more effective than pure systems." "It also suggests that change is possible," Lirelei added slowly. Maya nodded. "But first, we have to trust each other. We have to believe that the other person's ideas have value, even when they seem strange to us. Before anyone could respond, alarms started ringing throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. The robot judge's voice echoed from the speakers. Emergency situation. All representatives report to the main meeting room immediately. Maya, Lirale, and Zarathek ran through the corridors together. When they reached the main room, they found chaos. Multiple screens showed images from across the galaxy. Ships were moving toward the station from all 3 territories. "What is happening?" Maya asked. The robot judge turned toward them. "Conservative leaders from all 3 species are demanding an end to these negotiations. They are sending ships to collect their representatives. If you do not return with them, they threaten to consider this an act of war." Maya felt her heart sink. She looked at the screens showing the approaching fleets. The human ships looked angry and aggressive. The elf ships moved in perfect formation like they were preparing for battle. The crystal ships sparkled with dangerous energy. "How long do we have?" Lirale asked. "Approximately 18 hours, the judge replied. Zarathek stepped forward. "Insufficient time to complete negotiations, probability of peaceful resolution, less than 3%. Maya stared at the screens. Everything they had worked for was about to collapse. 3 species were about to go to war because their leaders could not imagine a better way. Then she remembered something. She turned to look at Lirale and Zarathek. 3 days ago, these women had been strangers from different worlds. Now they were working together, learning from each other, beginning to become friends. "Wait," Maya said suddenly. "What if we are looking at this wrong again?" "What do you mean?" Lirale asked. Maya pointed at the screens. "Those ships are coming because their leaders think we have failed. They think peace is impossible. They think their old ways are the only ways." She turned to face both women directly. "But we have not failed. We have learned to work together. We have found ways to understand each other. We have started to trust each other." Zarathek's lights began to pulse faster. "You are suggesting we demonstrate our success rather than explain it." "Exactly," Maya said. She was starting to smile again. "We have 18 hours to show the galaxy that cooperation works better than conflict." "How?" Lirale asked. Maya looked at the screens again. Then she had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. "The original trade dispute," she said. "The problem that started this whole mess. What if we solve it, right now, in front of everyone, using our new system?" Lirale's eyes went wide. "The trade dispute has been deadlocked for 3 years. Teams of experts from all 3 species have tried to solve it. They all failed. Previous attempts used single-species approaches," Zarathek said. Her lights were turning bright white, which meant she was thinking very fast. "A tri-species approach might produce different results." Maya nodded. "We have something those other teams did not have. We have trust. We have understanding. We have learned to combine human adaptability, elf wisdom, and crystal logic." She looked at both women. "Are you willing to try?" Lirale took a deep breath. "If we fail, our people will never forgive us." "If we succeed," Zarathek added, "we will change galactic history." Maya held out her hands. "Then let's change galactic history." Lirale took Maya's right hand. Zarathek took her left hand. For a moment, 3 women from 3 different worlds stood together in the face of overwhelming odds. 18 hours, Maya said. 18 hours, Lirale agreed. "Probability of success increasing," Zarathek observed. "Current estimate, 12% and rising." 12% was practically a guarantee of success. Maybe they could do this after all. The 3 women sat down at the central table and began to work. Outside, angry fleets raced toward them through space, but inside the meeting room something extraordinary was beginning to happen. 3 different forms of intelligence were combining into something greater than any of them could achieve alone. The galaxy was about to learn what humans had always known, that the impossible becomes possible when people choose to work together instead of fight alone. Captain Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of her ship, the UES Defender. She watched the screens showing the approaching fleets with growing worry. Lisa had known Maya Collins for 10 years. They had been through many dangerous situations together, but this felt different. This felt like the end of everything. "Captain," her communication officer called out. "We're receiving a message from Harmony's Edge Station." "Put it through," Lisa ordered. Maya's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined. Behind her, Lisa could see the elf woman and the crystal being working at a table covered with papers and computers. "Lisa," Maya said, "I need your help. All 3 fleets are coming to stop the negotiations. We need time to finish our work." "Maya, be reasonable," Lisa replied. "The entire human council is angry. They're calling you a traitor. They think you've been brainwashed by aliens." Maya shook her head. "Lisa, we're so close to solving this. We've figured out how to combine our legal systems. We just need a few more hours." Lisa looked at her friend's face on the screen. Maya had always been stubborn, but she was also usually right. "What do you need me to do?" "Keep the fleets from reaching the station," Maya said. "Not by fighting, by talking. Convince them to give us until tomorrow morning." Lisa sighed. "Maya, there are 60 ships out there. They're not in a talking mood." "Please," Maya said. "Trust me one more time." Lisa looked around her bridge. Her crew was watching and waiting for orders. They had followed her through many battles. Now she was asking them to risk everything on a peace negotiation. "All right," Lisa said finally. "But you owe me dinner when this is over." Maya smiled. "Deal. And Lisa? Thank you." The screen went dark. Lisa turned to her crew. "You heard the lady. We're buying time. Send messages to all 3 fleets. Tell them we want to talk." Back on the station, Maya returned to the table where Lirelei and Zarathek were working. They had spread the original trade dispute documents across the entire surface. The problem was incredibly complex. 3 years ago, a new trade route had been discovered between human and elf territory. The route passed through space claimed by the Crystal people. All 3 species wanted to use the route, but they could not agree on the rules. Humans wanted fast, flexible trading with few restrictions. Elves wanted careful, traditional contracts that would last for centuries. Crystal people wanted mathematical formulas that would ensure perfect fairness for everyone. Each species had proposed their own solution. Each solution ignored the needs of the other 2 species. For 3 years, the deadlock had continued. "The human proposal focuses on efficiency," Zarathek said, studying the documents. "But it provides insufficient protection for long-term stability." "The elf proposal ensures stability," Lirelei added, "but it lacks flexibility for changing circumstances." "And the crystal proposal achieves mathematical fairness," Maya said. "But it is so complex that no one can understand how to use it." They sat in silence for a moment. The weight of 3 years of failure pressed down on them. "What if we stop trying to choose between the proposals?" Maya suggested. "What if we use all 3 approaches at the same time?" "Impossible," Lirelei said automatically. "They contradict each other." "Paradoxical," Zarathek agreed. "Multiple systems cannot occupy the same logical space." Maya stood up and walked to the wall screen. She pulled up a map of the disputed trade route. "Look at this differently," she said. "What if each species gets what they need most, but in different ways?" She pointed to different sections of the route. "Humans need speed and flexibility. What if they handle short-term trading and emergency shipments?" Lirelei tilted her head thoughtfully. "That could work. Humans are good at making quick decisions." Maya pointed to another section. "Elves need stability and long-term planning. What if they handle major contracts and diplomatic relationships?" "Logical," Zarathek said. "Elf experience would prevent many potential conflicts." Maya pointed to the third section. "And crystal people are excellent at mathematics and fairness. What if they handle resource allocation and dispute resolution?" For the first time in hours, both women lowered. Lirelei said slowly. "All 3 species would have to trust each other," Zarathek added. "But it might actually work," Maya finished. They began working with new energy. Maya's idea became the foundation for a completely new type of agreement. Instead of one species controlling the trade route, all 3 would work together. Each would contribute their greatest strengths. Hours passed. Outside, Captain Lisa Morgan was having the most difficult conversation of her career. She was trying to convince 60 angry ship captains to wait just a little longer. "This is madness," the human fleet commander told her. "Our representatives have been contaminated by alien influence. We need to extract them immediately." "Give them until morning," Lisa replied. "If they have not solved the dispute by then, we will take them home." The elf fleet commander's voice was cold and musical. "The Silverleaf Dominion does not negotiate with infected minds. Our representative has forgotten her duty to elf purity." "Your representative is trying to prevent a war," Lisa said. "Give her a chance to succeed." The Crystal Fleet commander spoke in mathematical terms. Probability of successful negotiation is 2.7%. Continued delay serves no logical purpose. Maybe logic is not the only thing that matters, Lisa replied. As the hours passed, something unexpected began to happen. The ship captains started talking to each other directly. Human, elf, and crystal officers began sharing information about the situation. They started to see that everyone wanted the same thing: peace and prosperity for their people. On the station, Maya, Lirelei, and Zarathek were putting the finishing touches on their agreement. They had created something that had never existed before, a tri-species legal framework that used the best features of all three systems. "It is beautiful," Lirelei said, looking at their work, "like a three-part harmony in music." "It is elegant," Zarathek agreed. "The mathematical relationships are perfectly balanced." "It is going to work," Maya added with confidence. But their moment of triumph was interrupted by another alarm. New ships were approaching the station. These were not from the three fleets. These were small, fast ships carrying hardline protesters from all three species. "They are trying to sabotage the negotiations," the robot judge announced. "They intend to destroy the station rather than allow cooperation between species." Maya felt her heart racing. They were so close to success. They could not let extremists destroy everything now. "How long until they arrive?" Lirelei asked. 37 minutes, the judge replied. Zarathek's lights flashed red and orange. Insufficient time to evacuate. Insufficient time to complete formal ratification of the agreement. Maya looked at her two friends. They had come so far together. They had learned to trust each other and work as a team. They had created something beautiful and important. "Then we do not wait for formal ratification," Maya said. "We implement the agreement right now." "How?" both women asked. Maya smiled. It was the same warm, confident smile that had started everything. "We trust each other. We ask Captain Morgan and the fleet commanders to approve our agreement immediately. We ask them to protect the station from the extremists." "They might refuse," Lirelei pointed out. "They might attack each other instead," Zarathek added. Maya nodded. "They might. But they also might choose to work together, just like we did." She looked at both women. "Are you willing to bet everything on the power of cooperation?" Lirelei stood up straighter. "I am willing." Zarathek's lights shifted to brilliant white. "Probability of success has increased to 47%, acceptable risk parameters." Maya laughed. In just a few days, they had gone from certain failure to almost even odds. That was progress worth fighting for. The three women prepared to make the most important presentation of their lives. Everything depended on convincing 60 starship captains to trust each other enough to defend the peace they had created. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance. Maya stood in the center of the communication room, surrounded by screens showing 60 different starship captains. Human faces, elf faces, and crystal forms all stared at her with suspicion and anger. Behind her, Lirelei and Zarathek stood ready to support their friend. "Captains," Maya began, her voice clear and strong. "In 28 minutes, extremist ships will attack this station. They want to destroy the peace we have built here. They want your species to go to war." Captain Lisa Morgan's face was grim on one screen. "Maya, just tell us what you need." "I need you to work together," Maya said simply. "Human ships, elf ships, and crystal ships, side by side, protecting something we all created together." The human fleet commander shook his head. "Impossible. We do not fight alongside aliens." "Unacceptable," the elf commander added. "Our ships are sacred. We will not contaminate them with foreign presence." "Illogical," the crystal commander concluded. "Cooperation requires trust. Trust requires extensive data analysis. We lack sufficient time for proper evaluation." Maya felt her heart sinking. Even now, even with danger approaching, the three species could not work together. Maybe the extremists were right. Maybe cooperation was impossible. Then Lirelei stepped forward. "Captains of the Silverleaf Dominion," she said in her musical voice, "I have served our people for 300 years. I have never lied to you. I have never betrayed our traditions." The elf captains listened carefully. Lirelei had earned their respect through centuries of faithful service. "What we have created here is not betrayal," Lirelei continued. "It is evolution. Our ancestors would be proud that we found a way to preserve elf wisdom while building something greater." She gestured to Maya and Zarathek. These women are not our enemies. They are our partners. Together, we solved a problem that had defeated us for 3 years. Together, we can defend what we have built. Some of the elf captains looked thoughtful, others still seemed angry, but doubt was creeping into their expressions. Zarathek moved to stand beside Lirelei. "Hegemony Fleet Commanders," she said in her clear mechanical voice, "I present mathematical proof of cooperation effectiveness." Numbers and charts appeared on the screens. Zarathek had spent the last hour analyzing everything that had happened during the negotiations. When operating alone, each species achieved 23% efficiency in problem solving, she reported. When operating in cooperation, efficiency increased to 91%. The logical conclusion is clear: cooperation produces superior results. She paused and looked directly at the Crystal Fleet commander. Furthermore, the approaching extremist force consists of 847 ships. Individual fleet response would result in 73% probability of defeat. Combined fleet response increases success probability to 94%. The crystal captains began making soft chiming sounds as they discussed Zarathek's data. Numbers never lied to crystal people. If cooperation was more logical, they would have to consider it. Finally, Maya stepped forward again. "Human captains," she said, "you know me. You know I love our species and our values. I would never ask you to do anything that would hurt humanity." She looked directly at Captain Morgan. "Lisa, remember the battle at Kepler Station? Remember how we almost lost because we were too proud to ask for help? Remember how we finally won when we learned to work with the colony defenders?" Lisa nodded slowly. She remembered that battle. Human stubbornness had almost cost them everything. Cooperation had saved the day. "What we are asking is not surrender," Maya continued. "It is leadership. Humans have always been good at bringing different groups together. We adapt, we learn, we help others do the same." She gestured to the approaching danger. "Those extremist ships represent the old way of thinking: fear, hatred, separation. But we represent the new way: hope, understanding, unity." Maya smiled one more time. "Let us show the galaxy what humans do best. Let us bring people together." For a long moment, no one spoke. 60 captains from 3 different species considered the impossible choice before them. Then Captain Morgan's voice cut through the silence. "Human fleet, prepare for defensive formation. We will coordinate with our allies." "Allies?" the human fleet commander asked in shock. "The elf and crystal fleets," Lisa said firmly. "We are all defending the same thing now." One by one, the other human captains agreed. They had followed Maya this far. They would follow her a little further. The elf fleet commander spoke next. "If the Silverleaf Dominion is to survive, it must grow. We will fight alongside our new partners." The Crystal Fleet commander's response was pure mathematics. "Cooperation is logical. We will implement joint defensive protocols immediately." Maya felt tears in her eyes. They had done it. 3 species were about to fight together for the first time in galactic history. The next 20 minutes passed in a blur of activity. Human ships moved into formation with elf vessels and crystal cruisers. Captains who had never spoken to aliens before were coordinating battle plans with new allies. When the extremist ships arrived, they expected to find an easy target. Instead, they found something that had never existed before: a united fleet defending a shared dream. The battle was swift and decisive. The extremist ships were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Faced with united opposition, most of them surrendered without a fight. A few tried to attack, but the comb. Dr. Amy Foster watched the battle from her research ship. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. Human, elf, and crystal ships were fighting together like they had trained together for years. When the last extremist ship was captured, a cheer went up across all 3 fleets. It was a strange sound: human voices, elf songs, and crystal chimes blending together in celebration. On Harmony's Edge station, Maya, Lirelei, and Zarathek watched the victory with wonder and relief. "We did it," Maya said softly. "We demonstrated that cooperation is possible," Zarathek confirmed. "We changed everything," Lirelei added. 6 months later, Maya stood in a different place entirely. She was on a new space station called Unity Point. The station was beautiful, built with human engineering, elf artistry, and crystal technology. Around her, young people from all 3 species were studying together in the first Tri-Species Legal Academy. They were learning Maya's new legal system, a framework that combined human adaptability, elf wisdom, and crystal logic. Lirelei walked up beside her. She was now the Academy's Director of Traditional Studies. "How do you feel?" she asked. Maya smiled. Proud, hopeful, a little scared. Zarathek joined them. She had become the Director of Logical Analysis. Her lights were a warm, steady blue. "Emotional states are now part of my regular data processing," she reported. "Fear is logical when facing unknown futures. Pride is logical when achievements exceed expectations. Hope is logical when probability trends are positive." Maya laughed. "You have changed, my friend." "All beings change when they encounter new data," Zarathek replied. "The question is whether they process it effectively." They watched the students working together. A young human woman was teaching crystal mathematics to an elf boy. Two crystal children were learning to smile from their human instructor. An elf girl was showing human children how to weave starlight into art. "Look at them," Lirelei said softly. "They do not see aliens when they look at each other. They see friends." Maya nodded. "That is what we wanted. That is what we fought for." A young student approached them. She was human, but she had learned to speak with the musical tones of elf language. "Director Collins," she said, "our class has a question about the harmony protocols." "What is your question?" Maya asked. "Is it true that the whole system started because you smiled at someone?" the girl asked. Maya looked at her two friends and colleagues. They had been through so much together. They had changed their species, their galaxy, and themselves. "Yes," Maya said, "it started with a smile, but it succeeded because we learned to see each other as people worth knowing." The student smiled and ran back to her classmates. Maya, Lirelei, and Zarathek continued to watch the future unfold before them. On the walls of the academy, a simple motto was written in 3 languages. One human, one smile, and an entire legal system reprogrammed. Below that, in smaller text, was the real message. When we choose to see the person behind the alien face, anything becomes possible. The galaxy had learned that lesson well. Peace was no longer just a dream. It was a daily reality. Build one smile, one friendship, one act of cooperation at a time. And it had all started with 3 women who chose to trust each other instead of fear each other. Maya's smile had indeed changed everything.